Hello, welcome to the video. Today I want to talk about intuitive eating and using it as a fat loss strategy. So the first thing I want to say about intuitive eating, it's hard. It's not this easy, ideal way of eating that your body just automatically should know how to do. You have to kind of train yourself to know how to eat intuitively. Let's explain that a bit better. So I like to liken intuitive eating to the year 12 level of dieting, like the most advanced level you could pick. And you can't get into year 12 and complete it successfully without having done all the other years of education beforehand, because you need to gain all that knowledge in order to be able to complete year 12 successfully anyway. I would even go as far to say intuitive eating is like the university level of dieting. You can't get into university without having done school beforehand for a reason. It's the same with intuitive eating. You should not use it as a fat loss strategy unless you have already learned a lot about your body and food itself to begin with. So if you're someone that doesn't know the difference between steak and chicken breast, if you are someone that doesn't know what 100 grams of chicken breast looks like, if you are someone that thinks salmon is healthy and therefore is a good food to eat for fat loss, if you don't know that peanut butter is not a protein, then intuitive eating is probably not going to be the right strategy for fat loss for you just yet. And the key word there is yet, because again, it's the advanced level of dieting. So if you're using it as a fat loss or dieting strategy, then that's fine, but you have to have successfully undertaken other diets before using other strategies that teach you about food and teach you what your maintenance food intake looks like. The next thing I want to say about intuitive eating and why it is hard, if you think about using your intuition in your everyday life, so just to act on certain things, you get that feeling in your stomach and it's really hard to follow it because your brain and logic and everything is telling you, no, keep going this way, keep going, keep staying safe where you are. But your intuition is like, got that little voice and it's telling you to go in the opposite direction. And to actually listen to it and ignore everything that you think is right and follow something that doesn't really make sense, that's really hard to do. So doing it in terms of dieting, following your intuition with dieting and food is really hard, and it's usually doesn't lead to the best results unless you have this ability to ignore everything that does seem to make sense and everything that so far to be true. The other thing, if you're thinking like, okay, intuitive eating isn't really like that, you don't have to, it's like not talking about your intuition, which maybe it isn't. Maybe it is just talking about, eating what feels good and eating when you're hungry and that kind of thing. And again, this is flawed because eating when you're hungry, dieting, like it's normal to get hungry when you're on a diet. It's going to happen. So unless you know when to ignore that hunger and when to listen to it based on successful dieting in the past, then you're probably going to end up eating when you really don't need to eat, and then you're not going to end up losing weight. The other thing with intuitive eating is when you hit a plateau, which you will, it's normal for fat loss, it doesn't give you any guidance as to where to go next. Whereas if you are tracking your calorie intake, you're hitting a deficit, then you simply can increase the size of the deficit a bit more. But intuitive eating, like you're probably gonna end up either overshooting the deficit and choosing too great a deficit to start with, and then having very little room to move to overcome that plateau, or you're just not gonna know what to do because your intuition doesn't tell you, okay, I've hit a plateau, we need to do this next. Whereas if you're tracking things, you can see it on paper and you can kind of know when to bring in another strategy. Your intuition isn't going to help you there. So It's why I don't like using intuition as a fat loss strategy to start with. Again, you can, advance to that level of dieting. You don't need to track macros forever, but I highly recommend you do it to start with, because the knowledge you gain is going to then allow you to use intuitive eating as a successful dieting strategy in the future, or even just to successfully maintain your weight without having to track. So the goal is to learn about food, learn what a maintenance day of eating looks like for you. So the food that you need to eat every day to maintain your weight as it is. And then once you understand that, and once you have that self-awareness around what you actually need and how to listen to your body and listen to hunger and when to ignore it, that's when you can kind of transfer to an intuitive way to eat and be successful, whether your goal is fat loss or maintaining. So just say you track for a period of time and you know what maintenance food looks like for you, you know what portion sizes you should be eating around about to maintain your current weight. Then if you want to lose some fat, you can just decrease portion sizes. And ideally, you'll also know what protein intake you should be getting based on what it looks like with what you're currently eating. And you can choose to keep that protein the same without actually tracking it. You're just aware of what's actually on your plate, what's going into your body per day, and you keep that protein the same, and then you slowly reduce a little bit of your carbs, a little bit of your fat, or whatever else to create that deficit naturally. So I hope this video makes sense. Again, I always say that, but yes. Anyway, that's intuitive eating in a nutshell, why I don't like it, or as a beginner fat loss strategy anyway. I would track your food, learn what your body needs. You can't know what your body needs if you've never done that. You're so influenced by what you hear on the news and what you have used in the past to lose weight, and it's not necessarily true, it's not necessarily the right way to go about things. So using your intuition, unless you actually have all that knowledge already, it's just not the best way to go about things. Anyway, I'm going to see you in the next video.